Namaste. My name is Prakash Chitre. I'm an independent researcher and the author of the book of Intellectual Heritage. Drawing from one of the chapters of the book, I've prepared a set of 8 videos, uh, namely archaeological evidence of ancient Indian knowledge. Now, I would like to mention it here that the archaeological evidence is one of the 12 groups of evidence I was able to identify in my research. All 12 of these I've discussed in considerable detail in my book. In case you'd like to know briefly what those 12 groups are, please refer to my interview taken by the Center for Indic Studies of Ahmedabad. I have provided a link to that interview in the descriptions here and now, in case you've not seen any of the first 5 parts, I would request you to, after seeing this part, the sixth part, please go and see those 5 parts, all of them, because they're all interrelated and relevant to each other. For example, in part one, I have explained some of the very modern technologies used by our scientists, such as archaeologists, geophysicists, marine archaeologists, etc., to study the archaeological findings in various parts of India. It's very relevant. Please do see it. Now, see all of them. Part 6. First, an acknowledgement. Besides the Saraswati Sindhu Civilization, a number of very important discoveries of our ancient civilization, several thousand years ago, have also been made in other parts of our land. These two show the ancient Indian knowledge. Some such discoveries have been made in Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, West Bengal, Tripura, Madhya Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, Karnatak, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and Telangana, Maharashtra. Now, in the remaining 3 parts, that is 6, 7, and 8, I'm going to discuss some of the findings made in some of these states. Civil engineering, construction of reservoirs and dams. 3 Sanchi dams with a reservoir in the Raisen district of Madhya Pradesh, built 2300 years before present. There was a system of 3 dams and a reservoir. 2 of these 3 dams fed the reservoir of the third, and then the main dam. So the system was 2 dams which fed the reservoir, which fed the main dam. All were built simultaneously, circa 2300 before present, by Buddhist monks. The dating has been done using the optically stimulated luminescence, which technology I have discussed briefly in part 1, to study the rocks which were cut to fashion them into blocks. Now, this system continued to function effectively till circa 1000 BP. That means for nearly 1300 years. Now, that's really a long time for a dam to work, a system of dams to work. Uh, must have been made very well. Now, talking of dams, one must mention the Grand Anicut at Kalanai in Tamil Nadu, built by Karikalan, an emperor of the Chol Empire in the 2nd century CE. Being still functional nearly 1900 years down the line, it is not an archaeological find because it's still there. I have therefore discussed this marvel of civil engineering in a different chapter. Now, of course, in sometime in the 18th or 19th century, the British made some modifications to this Anicut. Uh, but even so, the Anicut functioned very well for 1600 years. Now, an Anicut is a kind of a dam, which the purpose for it is to divert some of the river water to a system of tanks and canals, which are meant for irrigation of land. Now, this Anicut irrigated as much as 1 lakh acres of land for 1900 years. Harbour architecture, civil engineering, and port construction. Ancient Pumpuhar in Tamil Nadu, circa 11,000 to 15,000 years BP. More than once, the sea on the east coast advanced in a critical rise event. Now, a critical rise event is when the sea level rises substantially in a relatively short time, and thousands of years later, it also receded, changing the coastline of Tamil Nadu several times, as it has done on the west coast as well, and in fact in many other parts of the world. The present-day Pumpuhar, which was established circa 2000 years ago by the Chol emperors, was way inland many thousand years earlier and thus was not a port. At present, underwater anomalies off the coast of Pumpuhar show extremely ancient man-made structures, 8 to 25 meters underwater now, and 8 kilometers off the coast from the current Pumpuhar. Several artifacts and structures have been found inland, such as wharfs in Melayur and Kilayur, and other structures which indicate existence of ports there at various points of time in the past. Now, these two places, Melayur and Kilayur, are not way inland, but they are not on the shore either. So, discovery of wharfs in these two places, which are inland, indicates that they were at the shore at some point of time, and sometime later the sea receded, and these places became inland. Continuing this, the geological remote sensing scientists from the National Institute of Ocean Technology and various other highly reputed institutions conducted these studies. They are of the opinion, learned opinion, that these are very likely to be an ancient harbor with a 20-kilometer long seawall to protect the port from the waves and storms, etc., and a proper network of canals in the east-west and northwest-southwest orientation for interconnectivity of large and small boats for loading and offloading of cargo. On the basis of their studies of the oldest Kaveri Delta and the ancient sea levels, they estimate that these are 11 to 15,000 years old. Later, in four phases over several thousand years, the port may have shifted to its present location. They recommend further studies such as an underwater profiler survey, sonar and optical photography, and their studies, etc. These findings are indicative of the presence of a very intelligent civilization there so very long ago. They constructed a proper port. Important findings have been made underwater on the west coast as well, in the Gulf of Kutch and Gulf of Khambat, on either side of the Saurashtra Peninsula. The Gulf of Kutch is to the west of the peninsula and Gulf of Khambat is to the east. I have discussed both these in some detail in my book, but I'm not going to do this over here naturally. Now, out of sheer curiosity, one may be inclined to ask four valid questions. With whom did they trade so long ago? Obviously, the receiving ports must have been at least almost as good. What did they trade or exchange? What commodities? Why did they trade by sea and not overland? Did they know how to build large seagoing ships? Is there any evidence for it? Now, with whom did they trade? They could have traded with anybody in any part of the world. But the point is that the oldest big ports found in other parts of the world are just about 2,000 to 6,000 years old, not as old as the ancient Pumpuhar. Now, but it's possible that they traded with other parts of India, other coastal places of India. For example, Khambat. Now, in Khambat, they discovered structures. Scientists of the National Institute of Ocean Technology, they discovered seawall and structures which look like, go downs for goods, etc. Now, they were not. This is the waters in the Gulf of Khambat are extremely turbulent and murky, so they could not make a further study of these places. But what they did discover a fossilized log, which has been carbon dated to 9,500 years old. Now, of course, many scientists, and quite naturally, they do not accept 9,500 because of the log. They cannot accept the age of the structures there naturally, because the log may have drifted in from somewhere else. But by the same logic, the structures there may be even older than 9,500 years old. Now, 9,500 and 11,000 is not very far from each other. So that may have been a functional port, and the Pumpuhar port traded with the port in Gujarat. Similarly, since India has such a long coastline, I think about 7,500 kilometers, so there may have been similar ports in other parts of India, like say Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, Karnatak, Maharashtra, etc. Maybe they're waiting to be discovered. Now, what did they trade and exchange? What commodities? There is evidence of organized farming in India 9,500 years ago at Lahore in eastern UP, which we had discussed in one of the previous parts. And there is also the evidence of the domestic mouse, in which the scientists, not just Indians but non-Indians as well, they found that the mice in Europe have a common ancestor, a very, very distant ancestor with India. Um, their ancient ancestor going back 12,000 years was an Indian mouse, which meant that food was traveling out of India as long ago as that. Of course, there are also side inferences also that if India was exporting food 12,000 years back, it meant that not only organized farming, but India was producing food much more than what it required. Because the first option is to satisfy the domestic demand, which is more imperative, easier, less expensive, less arduous, etc., before any exports could have been undertaken. Now, that mouse ancestry shows India was doing farming 12,000 years back. The Lahora Deva findings show that organized farming existed 9,500 years ago. That shows that maybe the same was happening in Tamil Nadu and Gujarat as well. And Tamil Nadu was exporting product X or commodity X to Gujarat and importing commodity Y from Gujarat to Tamil Nadu. So that was an exchange. Why did they trade by sea and not overland? Well, the reason is simple. Traveling by sea was easier, much safer, and faster. So they traded by sea. Did they know how to build large seagoing ships? Is there any evidence for it? Frankly, I have not been able to find any such evidence, but then that's my limitations. Besides, if there was a port, there were ships. There could not have been a port without a ship. And somebody was making those ships, and maybe those people in Pumpar were doing it themselves. They had the raw material as well as the brains to make ships. So that is that. Now, this brings me to the end of my part 6. Thank you very much, viewers, for taking interest in watching this video and for your time and patience in doing so. I sincerely hope that you liked it. Please do write your comments and queries so that I can respond at the earliest possible. In continuation, I shall upload part 7 or 8 in a day or two. Do look out for it. I hope to meet you again in the remaining 2 parts. Thank you very much. But for now, namaste and goodbye.